Welcome, paranormal enthusiasts, to this week's episode of We're Creepin' It Real, here on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, where everyone comes for their paranormal fix. Real people, real stories, in real time. So glad you could join us for some ghostly gab. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner. Hey everybody, give a hello shout out to our Coast to Coast techie, Chris Mabry. He'll be working hard tonight to help us run smoothly. And I got some great news. Coast to Coast Entertainment Network is now on Amazon. Woohoo! That's right. If you, as a listener, have this wonderful app, you can watch all Coast to Coast live programming directly from the app, and you can even go back and watch previous episodes. If you don't already have the app, I suggest you go and get it. But wait until after tonight's show because you don't want to miss what I have in store for you. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. He says he's past trying to prove the existence of ghosts. As a historian, he's more interested in lending credibility to or disproving certain hauntings. Please join me in welcoming Scott Sukel to the Creepin' It Real Vault. Welcome.
Well, hey, how you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
So, Scott, what do you consider the most real proof you yourself have uncovered about the existence of ghosts?
Let me see. My big thing is like EVP. I love doing EVP. A lot of stuff. A lot of the other stuff is just up to perception. It's up for. I don't even know how to describe it. A lot of stuff can be disproven. EVP. I mean, if it is if it's saying stuff that you can prove historically, okay, I'm good with that.
Okay. Well, my paranormal group, the Lady Ghostbusters, they take a more traditional approach and use very little in the way of paranormal equipment because we like to use our sensitivity and gifts to help us communicate with spirit in a community effort with one another. What's the most important thing you wish to accomplish in your investigations and how you go about doing it and what you use?
Well, I used to be one of those people that would, have all the equipment and all that and just, go crazy for recording for evidence and all that. Not anymore. With me,
Why?
I mean,
Why?
I like,
Why?
I'm way past the point of trying to prove anything to anybody. To me, it's more about the experience now. Because I mean, you know what? There are thousands of people out there right now trying to get that EVP or, trying to get that, get the K2 to go off or whatever they're using these days.
Yeah.
Me, you know what? It is more. It's more I get way more enjoyment out of it if I see a full-blown, full-body apparition. Or, I mean, my biggest piece of equipment is myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything you need, you have it. See, I over the years, I've pretty much figured out that a lot of the equipment that people use, like I said, your body naturally does it. Like, oh hell, I don't even remember what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
I think I can kind of relate to it because Like I said, we do a very traditional way of doing things because we all have our sensitivity to spirit
Okay.
in one way, shape, or form. And when we're together as a group, that energy that we as human beings bring to the situation is way more effective than having any kind of tool or equipment that you use. That's just like an added thing that people like to use to prove to the public that it's real. Here, this is what we have. And like you, a lot of us feel like, I don't want to prove it to anybody. I don't have to prove it to anybody. I know what's happening. I'm here just for the experience and what I can decipher from it and what I can learn from it. Is that kind of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly. Um, I mean, yeah, keep getting a thought. Sorry, I've been sick all day. I actually came home from work early today. And my brain, I've got a little bit of a brain fog. No,
Don't
it's
worry
not
about it.
COVID, but
That's good.
I um over the years, I have realized that a lot of the equipment that people use, a lot of times they're just using it to confirm what they are picking up in their bodies. Like, I mean, a lot of people use dowsing rods. Cool. I'm a third generation dowser. My grandfather was a dowser. My great grandfather was a dowser. And I realized that the dowsing rods themselves are nothing more than an extension of yourself. When you see the rods moving, crossing, uncrossing, whatever, that's actually you doing it, but it is your,
A
I don't
message
even like,
that you're a message that you're receiving and you're relaying it in the form of the dowsing rods.
correct.
Because I
Um,
know I use the dowsing rods myself, okay? And I use them. It's
mhm.
almost like a clarification for me because I almost don't trust what I hear. And
You
those
need to
dowsing rods
trust
is,
yourself.
I know, and I'm learning, but you have to remember that I started late in life. I shut everything down when I was a young girl, a teenager, and didn't start reawakening until I was 30. So I'm still getting acclimated to the whole thing that I have going on. And so I try to use these simple traditional tools to help me get the responses that I want so desperately when I could probably just listen to my head, but I don't. So I use that as my aid. I don't
Okay.
like to go to anything more. They have a lot of these really loud and advanced sort of stuff that people are really into, and I just feel like I'm trying to get back to the traditional and more of me. And so that's why I use the dowsing rods.
Okay. I also use them too. Um, but a few years back, I realized that for me personally, uh, it's just an extension of myself, and I already know what the rods are going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have you ever? This is a cool little experiment. Um, Back in the day when dowsing was, viewed as witchcraft, and you could be put to death for it, over
Right.
in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
there were what were called hand tremblers. Now, the hand
Hmm.
tremblers didn't use any devices but their fingers. And the way I do
Oh,
it, yeah, I
wow.
uh, I make. Sorry, a Mustang just went down the road doing about 120.
I thought either was that or some paranormal intervention.
No, it was some crackhead in a Mustang. So no, the way I do it is I take my finger or my hand and I do it like that, just out in front of me or even at my side. And like when my rods would, if I was using my dowsing rods instead, if they would cross, my hand would do this. It would tremble. So that would be like a positive hit on your dowsing rod.
So
Um,
you were using your fingers as if they were the actual rods themselves.
yeah. And
Okay.
for me personally, it works. Give it a shot. I mean, carrying
I'm
your
going to
hands
try.
around, yeah, carrying your hands around is a lot easier than carrying around a foot long piece of rod.
I tell you, those
So,
rods can be very different to balance and focus and straighten so that you are steady. It really can be really tough, but I know that I understand that it has a lot with to do with focusing your mind, and that helps you to. And I see where you're coming from. That you could really do it with all your mind and as
mhm.
a way of doing things rather than using the rods themselves. So I'm
Now,
definitely open to trying.
have you ever had the situation where you felt like your rods were being pulled out of your hands?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's a hoot. One time I had my rods actually pulled out of my hand. Yep, that was a
And do
crazy
you
night.
and do you think that was spirit doing that, or do you think it was you doing that?
Well, I mean, you know how you have your hands curled around the rod and all that stuff. When it actually
Yeah.
pulls your fingers out like that and pops them out of your hand, and that wasn't me.
What do you
So,
feel that what do you feel they're trying to tell you by doing that?
um, with that situation, they wanted me to follow them somewhere very what whomever or whatever I was communicating with that night wanted me to, I guess, come along with it. So it's like it was pulling me. Come on, you're coming this way.
Gotcha.
Yep, that's what I interpreted that to mean.
Gotcha. Well, you say it was around 2010 that you realized you were missing a fair amount of personal experiences because you were focused on recording and using gadgets rather than the surroundings and what was going on there. Explain what you mean by this and what you did about it, please.
Um, well, I was at a very well-known location. I was there every day for 15 to 20 hours a day. I was in charge of the ghost hunts at this location, and I was walking. I was showing a group around in an area, and they were walking. Essentially, it was down a cell block. Is where we were walking. We were walking down one of the tiers, and it was a group of five people, and then there was me in the back, and I'm just following them down the tier. And the leader of the group, he had, I'm sure you've seen these rigs where it's like got their camcorders, it's got their like task cam recorder, it's got like every piece of equipment you can imagine tied onto hooked onto this rig. So he starts freaking out because one of his detectors is starting to peg into the red. And so he's paying attention to that while the four people that were behind him and myself saw a full blown, full body, solid apparition walk out in front of him and down the tier. And the four people that weren't the lead guy turned around and they said, are you effing seeing what I'm seeing? And I'm like, yeah, I see him. But the thing is that the guy that was in the
Camera
front was
guy.
so focused on his equipment, he
He totally
completely
missed it.
missed
Yeah.
it. And that was the point where it's like, you know what? I'm putting the equipment down and I'm just going to experience the surroundings. And that has been way more fruitful than anything.
Understandable. You mentioned you've been able to investigate this single location for like 20 years for as much as 60 hours a week. It's the Ohio State Reformatory, correct?
Correct.
And
Yep.
you were the ghost hunt manager there for a long while, right?
I was the ghost hunt manager there for a decade, and then no, it was actually a little over a decade. But before that, I was a volunteer. doing tours. My specialty was you know, um, doing the ghost hunts and all that stuff. So yeah, I was there for going on 21 years before I decided, you know what, I'm done. Yeah, yeah. It's like, you know what, from mm, essentially all of my summer was there, and I'm talking like literally 115 hours a week I was there. So yeah, I decided to I decided that I wanted to live life more with the living than with the dead. So, and when you work there 115 hours a week, it's sort of hard to do that.
Yeah. What's the history of that place? What's the history of the building? How old is it? What went on there?
Um, it they laid the cornerstone in 1886. It opened up in 1896. It was designed to be a reformatory, which it sort of fell in between like the state boys school that was in Lancaster, Ohio, and the Columbus Penn. Um, Essentially, if you were between the ages of 16 and 30 and you were a first time offender, you would automatically go there, and they would, essentially teach you trades. They would, you'd get your education there. You were actually able to get your college degree there. Well, back in the 30s, there was a big fire at the Ohio Penitentiary, which was the OSR's big brother. So that's when they started to filter a couple more. They started to filter like harder core criminals into the building because
Oh,
they lost a complete cell block down at the Ohio Penn, and they needed
oh,
somewhere to put the guys that were supposed to go into that cell block. So they started filtering them to OSR, and then the number of higher security level inmates just kept on growing and growing and growing. And then later on in the years, it was turned into a maximum security prison. Um, it closed down December 31st of 1990, and it was open for 94 years. And back in the early days, if you were going to prison, that's where you wanted to go. In the later days, if you're going to prison in the state of Ohio, that's the place that you did not want to go. I
I'm
mean,
sure there's a lot of stuff that sure there's a lot of stuff that went down on there. Actually, Chris, we have photos of the building if you'll put it up for the viewers to see. That's an old one. That old photograph, how when was that taken? Do you know, Scott?
actually, I took that picture.
Did
Yeah, that
you?
was yeah, I took that. It was there was a Model A car club that was there, and
Oh,
I'm also a photographer. So I
nice.
saw I took this shot and I'm like, yeah, that's that's the shot. The only way you can tell it's modern is if you zoom in real close in between the cars, there's two plastic picnic tables. Yep.
It's great. I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't have, I wouldn't have known the difference.
That
It's
one tricks a
definitely
lot of people.
it's definitely a very imposing building for sure.
Have you ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption?
I have. Love it.
That's where they filmed it.
Oh, very
Yep.
cool. I like that
Yep.
tidbit of information.
Yep. That's
You
where they
wanna show
filmed
another one,
Shawshank.
Chris? Look at that one. That's in the dark. Did you take that one too?
Yes, I did.
It's
When we were
beautiful, beautiful.
when when we were filming Ghost Hunters Academy back in 2010, they had the building lit up, and like I said, I'm a photographer, so it was actually in between taping that I had a little bit of time to run out, and I'm like, you know what, I have got to take this shot.
Oh, it's
So,
beautiful. It's
oh,
beautiful.
thank you. That that picture has been on magazine covers, book covers. The BBC used it. It's been on billboards. I just love that shot, and they'll never be able to replicate it.
No, it's
So,
beautiful. And we have
yep,
a third shot you shared with us. If you want to put that up, Chris, there you go. Now this is in the daytime.
yep.
Look at that. It's amazing. So beautiful. Oh, I love it.
It, yeah. The architect was Levi Schofield out of Cleveland, and he was a 33rd degree Freemason. So there are some subtle and some not so subtle, like Mason symbolism in the building. Um,
Uh-huh.
I mean, even if you look at the like an aerial of the main building with the cell blocks and all that stuff, it is in sort of the form of the 33rd degree Freemason symbol, which is an eagle with two heads, outstretched wings. Uh, so if you look over it, the wings would be the cell blocks. The tail section or the body would be the main part of the building, like the central guard room. Tail would be like where we used to call it the east diagonal and the west diagonal, and the two heads would be the two administration buildings up front.
It's an awesome looking building, a structure that is really unforgettable. I'm curious whether the people who filmed Shawshank Redemption, because you know they were probably there at all hours of the day, if they
Yeah.
too experienced stuff while they were there.
I talked to one gentleman who was in the art department for Castle Rock Entertainment, and like you said, they were there day and night. And the art department actually got into the building 6 weeks before they started filming. And he said, as time went on, there were fewer and fewer people from that department that would work at night, and they would find reasons to, do stuff outside. So, yeah, yep.
Well,
It's fun.
why don't you
Do
tell
what?
the listeners about the spirit? Tell us about the spirits that were in the building that you became affiliated with because you developed relationships with the spirits that were in the building.
Oh yeah. I mean, they became family to me. Um, I mean, there are some spirits in there that they had a respect for me just I think because they saw me there so much and they knew I was there to, I'm not going to say protect them, but I was there to protect them.
How about acknowledge them, make them feel like they were a part of what was going on? Because a lot of them, I think, they try to reach us, and some people don't even hear them, and some of us even don't hear them until after we listen to audio. So it's kind of like acknowledging them, making them feel like we recognize you're there, and this is what you want to say. We want to hear it, we want to learn, we want to tell the world, kind of thing.
Well, I could see that, but I mean, it got to the point probably the last 7 or 8 years that I was there that, I would do my normal rounds. Like I said, I'd be the only one in the building. I would, walk around to unlock certain areas for the investigation that night. And there were certain cells that I would always hear the guys talking to me. And I would talk back to them. And, I figured out just through the years what type of music certain guys liked. So I would play, certain type of music on the PA system while I was walking around. And, you would walk past certain cells and they would just say, thank you.
Oh,
But then there were some, seeing how I was the historian, um, that their story was so sad and so traumatic that I didn't tell anybody about these guys, because I didn't want, well, to put it bluntly, 100. people a night that paid their, at at that point $80 to walk around a creepy haunted prison all night. I didn't want those people to know about the guys I knew about, because then they'll go, "Oh, well, Scott said that there's some guy in this cell. Let's go mess with him,"
Oh,
which
yeah.
has over the past decade,
Disrespectful.
huh?
Disrespectful.
Exactly. And I saw more and more and more of that over the years.
Will you tell us
It,
will you tell us about some of them and their stories tonight?
sure. There was a 19-year-old kid um, in one of the cell blocks. He was there for, it was petty theft. And he just couldn't take it anymore. He wrote essentially he wrote a suicide letter, left it in his cell, put it on his bunk, and he hung himself.
Oh,
And I looked up the kid's story and all that stuff, and in the official report, it said that the person who wrote it wrote inmate so and so wrote the most pathetic note to his mother that I have ever read. And when I read that line, when I saw that in the report, I'm like, you know what? This kid had it bad enough. I'm not going to tell these 100 idiots in the building right now to go talk to him.
yeah.
So, um, there was one down at the end of one of the cell blocks that he just hung out there. And it was probably 15 years, usually 2 to 3 times a week. When I was walking around, the building had to be empty. I had to be the only one there. And he would just, at first it would be like he would bang on a bar when I'm walking past. And then, his he became more and more, I guess, active with me, to the point where uh, I walked past the area that I always felt him in, and he just said, "Hey, Scott, come here." Okay. And then I stood there, I talked to him, and he didn't say anything else. But there was one night, um, he uh, threw a ghost box, which, I wasn't really too keen on him, and I'm still sort of iffy on him. But he essentially gave me his story. Because this whole time I said, "Hey, you understand that you could leave this place at any time." And I kept telling him that and telling him that and telling him that. And, through several ghost box sessions and a couple EVP that I got from him, essentially his story is he knew he could leave, but he did some bad stuff in there. He killed a younger inmate while he was in there. And he said, "I'm going to stay here until I am right with what I did." So it was one night I was having just a super bad night. I was locking the building up. We just had a horrible group in there that night. And so I go down there and I'm telling them about the group. And audibly, he says, "I'm going home."
Oh,
Okay, good for you. And that's the last thing I heard of him. So the next night, I'm walking around and I get to his area, and it was a completely different feel. And I'm like, hey, are you here? Nothing. And then I just got this sense of peace of, Yeah, that SOB actually went home. Good for him.
Oh,
Yep.
good. Yeah.
Yep.
We always try and send them to the light if we can explain to them the reasoning behind it. And some of them don't know they're dead. I mean, you know what you go through
Yeah.
when you're,
Yeah.
yeah. So that it really is really wonderful when you can get them to move on. I mean, because if they move on, you tell them you can come back anytime you want to. And half the time they
Yeah,
don't want to come
exactly.
back. But
Exactly.
if you're stuck here, you can't go anywhere else. So that's
Yep.
really wonderful. Well, I
Yep.
know you like to help people with paranormal experiencing. What is that all about?
I do what? Huh?
You said you like to help
Sorry.
people with you like to help people with paranormal experiencing and the way they experience the paranormal. And you said that
Oh,
there's a method that you use.
um, what I would do, there were I think the biggest thing the biggest hurdle I had to get over when I was figuring out how to do the helping, essentially putting people in the optimal situation for them to experience something, is figure out what type of people experience things and what groups of people and all that stuff. Because I noticed, say you have a group of 4 people walking around the building and they're not experiencing anything. Other groups are experiencing things. Well, it's like these little groups are like puzzles, and you have to have all the right puzzle pieces in that puzzle for you know for it to really, for them to be able to experience the activity um, as well as possible for the situation that they're in. So after I figured that out, I, being historian, I knew what the most haunted area in that building was at that time. This area was having people have experiences in it back into the early 1930s. They were talking about things that were happening. Um, so I knew what I would experience while I was walking through that area. So one night I had a group. It was a private investigation. There were 10 people there. So I all got them into the central room of the building, which is, it's nice. It's air conditioned. It's all glassed in. And I just, I asked somebody to volunteer to do an experiment. And, uh, of course, the one person raises their hand. Okay. So I had them walk out through the into the cell block and walk around this one tier without any lights on. And when they got back to the central guard room that we were in, I told them, do not say anything about what you experienced. And then, the next person, they would go, and then the next person would go. And when everybody came back, I'm like, okay, what did you guys experience? And about 80% of the time, their stories would match up. And, the same type of experience in the same section of, the tier that they were walking. I did that for years and years and years. And, like I said, I had, on bad nights, I had about a 65% success rate. On average nights, it was about 80%.
What were they
So,
experiencing?
well, they would, when they got around the first corner of the tier, they would hear somebody walking up behind them, and then they would walk the 315 feet down to the end of the tier, and certain cells they would get like, I heard something out of this cell about halfway down. And then they would, when they're wrapping around the back of the cell block, a lot of people just didn't like that area for some reason. Historically, that was a very bad area because, back down in the back, the guards wouldn't be able to see. So a lot of people had a lot of dirty things done to them down there. And then when they were wrapping back around, usually about the fourth cell coming back, they would see a shadow figure, and they would keep walking about half. When they got about halfway down, um, they would feel like someone was touching them, and then when they got back, um, they just had a sense of relief because holy hell, I just walked this entire tier in the dark by myself. So those were the big things. I mean, granted, not each one of those things didn't happen to each one of the people because the if that spirit or that energy wasn't active that night, of course they're not going to experience it. But usually there were like three spots on that tier that people would hit on.
That's a good way of seeing if everybody feels the same thing, and then
Yep.
yeah, that's a
And
good idea.
yeah, and it worked on so many levels because one, the person, their perceptions were heightened because they were separated from everybody else who was in that building because they knew where everybody in that building was. They were in a central spot and isolated from that cell block. So you had that. Um, so that gets your perception going,
Sure.
and be more active. Next, doing it in the dark because your eye is naturally drawn to the brightest part of a scene. So if you have your flashlight on, your mind is naturally just focusing on that light area. When you do it in the dark, pupils open up and you can see a lot more around you. Um, so you get that. It just worked on so many levels.
Did you say that you lived in a haunted building yourself for a time?
Yeah, I lived in the prison
Oh,
back in
really?
yeah back in 2010. Um, I essentially lived there full time. Seeing how I had so many flipping events, and it was a horrendous year. And I live an hour and 15 minutes away from the building. So it really didn't make sense to work a 20-hour event one day, then drive the hour and 15 minutes home to pretty much drive the hour and 15 minutes back because I had another 20-hour event the next day.
Sure.
So yeah, I set up camp and some people call it my yeah, some people call it my serial killer room. It was the walk-in safe. So yeah, pretty much after an investigation, I would go into the walk-in safe, and yeah, I just lived there.
Wow, you were brave because you go this alone. You do all of this
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Oh my
Oh, and
goodness.
and the thing is, it was so cool because a lot of times you would hear like administration coming in when there's no administration coming in. You would hear the trustees mopping the hallway and kicking the metal buckets down the hallway and
Kind
stuff
of
like
like
that.
a residual
Yeah,
replay of energy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Going on about
I
their
mean,
day and their night.
yeah. One of the other volunteers, they one night we were I think we had a long event that day, and we were staying the night there, and it was funny. It got to the point with us where if if the spirits were making a lot of racket, you would just open up the door and say, "Hey guys, come on, just let us sleep." And one time, my another, like I said, another one of the volunteers just threw the door open and in some rather not uh, nice words said, "Hey, could you shut the up?" And yeah, 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 it
That
was a
is
good time.
really funny.
Yeah,
Well, for
but yeah, go ahead.
listeners who are interested in paranormal investigations, what advice would you give to them personally?
Hmm. Common sense, common sense, common sense. Not everything is a ghost. Um, be perceptive. Um, see, I don't. My Mr. Miyagi, who trained me how to do a lot of this stuff, he always kept saying, this is just like fishing. This is just like fishing. Um, or this is just like deer hunting. You have to know. You have to learn what to look for. Um, you have to be perceptive. You can't, if you're sitting up in a tree stand, deer hunting, you can't expect a 350-pound buck to just, jump out in front of you. You have to listen for that snap of a twig in the distance. You have to, watch for the little flash of white from the tail. That's the same idea. It's like, don't don't expect too much. Because most of the time, activity is very, very subtle. If you're expecting a full blown, full body apparition to come out and have a conversation with you, go home. It ain't going to happen. But if you want to have, if you are looking to have like true experiences, um, just be perceptive to what's around. Um, like say you're in a building and you uh, go into a new area of that building or an area that you have not explored yet. Stand there for a little bit, get acclimated to the surroundings, make mental notes. Okay, is there a breeze? You know, do I hear any noises? Is it humid out? What does the area feel like? And just sort of make mental notes of that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then if one of those changes, you'll go, hey, you'll tick back to that mental note and go, wait a minute, it was just warm in here a second ago. Now it's like flipping cold. I've had that happen. Ooh, that's weird. Um, but like I said, just be perceptive, use common sense, um, and don't trust 95% of the stuff that you see on TV.
Oh, I agree with you 100% on that because, you know, paranormal investigating is quite boring sometimes. You could be there for hours and hours and hours. And these shows are all about entertainment. They want to entertain you, so they're going to make stuff happen to entertain you. So I tell everybody I talk to, don't believe that either, because if something doesn't happen, they're going to make it happen.
Well, I've been on a ton of the shows, so I see the entire process from beginning to end to make a show.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like I said, Ghost Hunters Academy, they were there literally for 7 days straight filming.
Wow.
And a 1 hour TV show is only 42 minutes after you cut the
Right.
commercials out. And then probably, you know, 35 to 37 of those minutes is either B-roll or interviews. So out of that entire week they were filming, they only really got a couple minutes of evidence or activity. So it's yeah, don't expect to get possessed every place you go. Um, yeah, don't that stuff is so rare. Oh, also, not everything is a demon. For the love of God, drop the demon BS.
Mm.
I've been doing this well over 32 years now, and I have never run into anything that I would even consider to go to the level of your stereotypical demon. I've run into some nasty stuff. I'll say that.
Hmm.
But I'll never say, yes, that entity is it's an outcast from hell that's here to steal my soul. No. Um, also, seeing how I was, you know, I guess technically in the paranormal tourism industry, if you go to a location, take their stories with a huge grain of salt. I've been to so many locations that you will be told so much BS, um, that and they'll also try to plant seeds in your mind. Like I actually went to one place where I was taking the tour, and the tour guide would literally uh, say, "Oh yeah, we get shadow people down this hall all the time." And then he'd look down the hall and he would go, "Ooh, did you see that one? Did you see what that one right there? There's one." And just planting the seeds in people's mind. And you know what? If you want to go for for oohs and ahs, you know what? Go ahead, knock yourself out. But uh, um, if you want to really investigate when you're getting the tour, especially on like private investigations, tell them that you don't want to know about the activity. You just sort of give me the history. I don't know how many well-known, well-respected paranormal groups came in, and I would always cater my tours towards that specific group. And I always asked them, okay, what do you guys want to know about? Some of them wanted to hear about, the scariest things I've ever experienced in here, da 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 da. Most of the well-respected groups, they just said, you know what, just give the history, nothing else. Um, and then I actually had a group. It was a college track team that uh, I said, well, what do you want from the tour? And they said, just show us how to get around here and give us the history, and we have to do it while we're running. So I did a tour of a 250,000 square foot building to a college track team in, I think it was about 12 minutes. And that is going all over the building. And as you can see, um, I am not exactly built for running, but it was a blast.
I think I lost you there
Yes.
for a minute. Are you there?
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I haven't
Bear with
been
us. I think we're freezing up a little bit.
I haven't been abducted by demons or anything like that.
Hey, have you ever thought about writing a book about your research and your findings?
I have numerous times I've been approached by people to write books, but honestly, I've never really had it in me. I've seen my friends who have written
No.
books, and I see how much time and effort it takes. And you know what? I would love to, but I just I just don't have the desire at this point. But in the future,
Take it from
maybe.
me. Take it take it from me. I've written 4 books. I'm on book 5 now, and you're absolutely right. It consumes you. It really does, and it takes up
Hmm.
every waking moment that I have. So I can feel your pain.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I would love to actually put my thoughts and my findings and my stories down on paper, um,
Hmm.
because it's like a lot of the stuff that I have figured out, when I tell people about it, they try it and it works for them too. So I mean, there's got to be some type of validity to what I found, and it's like I want to share that stuff with people. But honestly, a little part of me doesn't want to share that stuff with people because I have, over my years, for the love of God, if you have an idea and somebody hears about it, that then becomes their idea, and then
Mm.
end up taking credit for it. And right now, you know what? Well, forever the paranormal field has been sort of a, a sketchy. There's a lot of sketchy people in the field,
Oh
so
yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of
yeah.
drama. A lot of drama in the paranormal world.
Oh, there always has been, and every year we're like, you know what, this has got to get better. This has got to get better, and it never does. So,
I've already had my experience with paranormal drama, and I was not happy about it, and I don't want to deal with it anymore. So I get
oh
it.
yeah, oh yeah, yep,
Hey, do you recall what your first paranormal encounter ever was?
yes. Actually, right now I'm sitting in our barn. Um, so when I want to say I was about 10. Um, I was walking back from the woods, and I was walking past this barn. Well, not this barn, because we had to build this one, but my grandfather's barn used to sit here. And I was walking down to the house past the barn, and I noticed on the road there were a bunch of cars from the 50s and 60s going past. And I figure, oh, the town down the road must be having another car show like they do like every weekend. So I'm just, walking and watching the cool old cars go down the road. And then there's a guy that's walking up towards me, and I recognize him. And he's like, "Hey, Scotty, how you doing?" I'm like, "Okay, Grandpa, how are you?" "All right, just going up to feed the rabbits." "Okay, fine." And then I get down to the house, and then it hit me. Like I said, I was like about 10 at the time. My grandfather died when I was 1. So
That
yeah.
was great.
Oh
That's
yeah,
cool.
that was my first really memorable experience.
Love
Um,
it.
but then, like most people, it's like you have those experiences when you're younger, and then they just sort of you quit having them for a while, and then something later on in life, sparks the interest back up, or you have another experience, and you're like, dude, I want to learn more about that now.
Yeah, that happened to
So,
me when I was 30 years
yep.
old. It took that length of time. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. So listen, if
Yeah.
anyone that's listening is interested in connecting with you, can you tell us how or where they can go to do that?
Just look me up on Facebook. I've got my Scott Sukel page, or you know what, having a lot of friends on Facebook makes me feel happy, and it fulfills me. So, So if you want to hit me up on my normal Facebook page, that's fine too. I don't care. So
You don't
I
mind receiving messages from people and answering questions and connecting,
no,
right?
no, not at all. I still get a good amount of groups from all over the world that still contact me, consulting, I'll, if I sort of have like this, I'm not going to say underground following, but it's like an underground following that it's
Okay.
like, okay, we got into this investigation and this is just way too bizarre. Let's get a hold of Scott, see what his take on it is. So yeah, I still get a fair amount of those. So yeah,
Very
I mean, if
good.
people have questions, get a hold of me. I'm happy to tell you what I know.
Well, you do other paranormal investigating. You've gone to other places yourself other than just the
Oh yeah,
performatory.
yeah. I've been all over hell, all over the United States. Um, Actually, I just got back. Where was the last place I was at? Uh, Probably Crescent Sanatorium out in PA.
Okay.
That was probably the last place I was at.
Is that the
Um,
photo that you have up on your Facebook page, the backdrop on your Facebook page right now? It's got all
I
like the
think.
greenery
Oh,
and moss growing all over it.
that is actually Molly Stark uh, Sanatorium out near Akron, Ohio.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it's a really cool building, but nobody will ever legally be allowed in there.
Okay.
So, um, but yeah, I've let me see, Crescent,
Interesting.
just got back from there. Um, St. Albans in West Virginia or in Virginia. St. Albans Sanatorium. You ever get a chance to go there, check the place out. Super cool. Um, if you're into ships, I highly recommend USS Edson up in Bay City, Michigan. That's
How
another
do you
killer place.
how do you find out about these places and locations?
A lot of times, my friends get involved in these locations and they'll be like, dude, you got to come up here. So I'll go up there. Um, Actually, I went to Crescent because I was digging through my family history and I found out that my great great grandfather died there. So of course I wanted to go check it out. So yeah,
Sure.
um, or I'll when there's conferences and stuff, um, people people will have conferences like Moundsville Penitentiary and all that. I'll speak at those, so I'll be able to check those places out, and then you learn about new places. And yeah, there's a bunch of places I want to hit that I still
Plenty of them
haven't been
out
able to.
there. Plenty of them out there.
Yeah,
Well, thank you,
yeah.
Scott, so much for coming on this evening. I really appreciate it. You definitely made for an out of the ordinary show, but extremely intriguing nonetheless.
Well, thank you for having me. If you ever want me back on, I'll be more happy to do it next time. My head won't be filled with cotton like it was today.
I
So
would love that. I would love that. I'd
yeah.
love to hear about some of the other places that you visited and what you've encountered.
Oh, I would have to tell you about Missouri. You'll get a hoot out of that.
Love it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you. You as well.
And thank you, Techie Chris. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. If you liked listening to this week's episode and you are into all things paranormal, check out my other show, Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast, out of the Paranormal UK radio network, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. If any of you are interested in reading any of my books, You can find the links to them on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com. I write about the history and the town and location, add the paranormal story to the mix, and finish it all up with photos and evidence. And if you're looking for some protection from ghostly attachments, the Lady Ghostbuster unisex bracelet is the perfect thing. This gorgeous protective gemstone bracelet with sterling silver ghost charm is the perfect fix. Offered in a collaboration with Zen Jewels by Zen Jen, you can find the link for this gorgeous piece at my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, under the merchandise tab. Don't go into a haunted building unprotected. Arm yourself with the Lady Ghostbuster bracelet by Zen Jewels. Viewers, tune in on Thursday, August 4th, when Married to the Void investigators Lexi and Corey McFadden come to share some ghostly gab with me at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, be sure to be creeping it real.
I hope you've enjoyed this little journey down my own personal nightmare alley. If you're one of those people who experiences the paranormal and has stories of your own you've been filing away over the years, I want to hear about them. And if you're a part of a paranormal investigative team, even better. I'd love to have you on my show. Got a questionable photo? Send it in. Would love to have an open discussion here amongst the professionals. Reach out to me at authoreleanorwagner@gmail.com. Enjoy our soundtrack music, Headless Horseman by Alexander Nakarada, promoted by freestockmusic.com. And remember, no ghost story is better than a real-life ghost story. Until we meet again, make sure you're creeping it real.